Architectural Board of Review for April 28th, 2025, and we will begin with roll call.
Thank you, Chair Anderson. I'll begin with Chair Anderson.
Here.
Vice Chair Whalen is not here yet, right? Board Member Black.
Here.
Board Member Anderson.
Here.
Board Member Noon.
Yes.
Board Member Six.
Yes.
And Board Member Soffren.
Yes.
We have quorum. Thank you.
Okay, we will move on to general business, starting with item A, public comment. Any member of the public may address the board for up to 2 minutes on any subject within our jurisdiction that is not on today's agenda.
Thank you, Chair Anderson. At this time, I do not have any speaker slips for in-person public comment. Though if anyone in the room would like to speak, are you the applicant? Okay, yeah. We don't have any participants online, but I will acknowledge that we received written correspondence from Andy Zwerin. And I'll give it back to you.
Okay, we will close general public comment and move on to the approval of the minutes of the Architectural Board of Review meeting from April 14th.
That was such an exciting meeting.
Are you making a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes.
Okay.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Okay, let's take a vote.
Can I just confirm who made the motion while I get to know you guys?
Board Member Soffren made the motion.
Okay.
And Board Member Noon seconded.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, I will begin the vote with Board Member Six,
Yes.
Board Member Soffren,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Noon,
Yes.
and Chair Anderson.
Yes.
Motion passes, thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to the approval of the minutes from the consent meeting on April 14th.
Thank you, Chair Anderson. One project was listed for that April 14th meeting, 1625 Laguna Street, that received project design and final approval with the condition comments. Condition to provide on the plans a section in detail of the front entry stair railings on both sides of the entry stair. Condition to configure the entry stairs to not encroach onto the public sidewalk. The applicant to make sure the first 12-inch extension of the required landing is configured appropriately. The board prefers that the handrail be of traditional wrought iron. And lastly, it is suggested that the color of the pavers within the private patios be a lighter color than the common area, or if preferred, a poured light colored scored concrete in consideration of vines for the patio fencing.
Make a motion for approval. I'll second.
Okay, let's take a vote.
Thank you. I'll begin with Board Member Six,
Yes.
Board Member Soffren,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Noon,
Yes.
and Chair Anderson.
Yes.
Motion passes, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item D, announcements, requests by applicants for continuances and withdrawals, future agenda items, and appeals.
Yes, Chair Anderson, Ellen Kokenda, Design Review Supervisor, and good afternoon to the board. I just want to first introduce you to Jasper Carmen. If you are not aware, if you haven't met Jasper before, we have Joni Mitchell is going to be out on leave for a little while, so Jasper is filling in while she is away. So she'll be staffing the ABR and ABR consent. I also want to let you all know that 418 North Milpas, the housing development project that you saw, has been appealed and will be going to City Council, and we have not determined a date just yet. So when we do solidify a date with the applicant and City Council members, we will be asking for a volunteer someone who was on the approving side of the decision to attend that meeting. So just a heads up on that. Also want to let you know that you did receive a public comment about a request for a reconsideration. And I just want to clarify that the board cannot have a reconsideration of this decision at 418 North Milpas. A request for a reconsideration can only be made if by a board member who was on the prevailing side of at the meeting when the original action took place, and the request must be made in writing to staff before the end of the second business day following the day on which the original action was taken, and that's in order to comply with the Brown Act, the State Brown Act. So, which would then allow us to put the reconsideration on the agenda. So there's a very kind of clear timeline from a Brown Act standpoint of how reconsiderations work. I know that this question came up with Vice Chair Whalen, and we wanted to respond to it so that all of you were aware and the public was aware. And the reconsideration information is, I know it's in the HLC guidelines, and I'm 99.9% sure it's in the ABR guidelines as well, but I can get you the specific language. But I just wanted to, in case there were questions about that, clarify what that process is.
Thank you. Any questions from the board?
I'm happy to do the city council thing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you in advance.
Any questions? Okay, thank you. Okay, let's move on to subcommittee reports. Okay, we don't have any. Okay, let's move on to item 1. This is a continued item for project design approval. It's at 428 Anacapa Street. The proposed project involves demolition of 2 single-family residences and a detached garage, and construction of a new mixed-use structure comprising 6 short-term rental units on the ground floor and 9 long-term rental units on the 2nd through 4th floors using the AU Average Unit Size Density Incentive Program. Proposed density is 61.6 units per acre, and average size of the long-term residential units is 824 square feet, consistent with Santa Barbara Municipal Code Title 30 Priority Housing Overlay Standards. 6 covered parking spaces will be provided to serve the non-residential use. No parking spaces are required to serve the long-term residential use pursuant to SBMC and California Assembly Bill 2097. Review of the Architectural Board of Review for a development plan is required for a small addition of new non-residential floor area per SBMC 30.230.030.c. The project qualifies for an exemption from further environmental review under section 15301, existing facilities of the California Environmental Quality Act. Project design approval is requested. Project requires compliance with the project compatibility findings and development plan findings, as well as the urban design guidelines and the Haley-Milpas design guidelines. It was last reviewed on August 19th, 2024. Do we have anything from staff additional?
I have the previous minutes available if the board would like to see those.
And just to clarify, the development plan, so you will be required, in addition to reviewing the project compatibility findings, there are development plan findings. So this is only for projects that are proposing new non-residential floor area between 1,000 and 3,000 square feet. ABR and HLC review those development plans. Staff hearing officer reviews them when they're over that amount, and then there's also a threshold for the planning commission. So that's just what this extra findings are.
And that's in reference to the short-term rental on the first floor?
That's correct.
Non-residential? Yeah, okay.
But essentially, this project meets all of the zoning requirements. It's just an extra approval,
Okay.
findings that have to be made.
Okay. Oh, boy. Yeah. Okay, well, welcome back. If you guys could introduce yourselves, you'll have 15 minutes. Might be helpful just to go through the list and just check them off.
Bobby Walker from BW Design.
Hi, Jarrett Gorin, Vanguard Planning. Chris Gilliland, Common Ground, Landscape Architecture.
Thank you.
Yeah, so really briefly, the major thing that we did here is make the project all sort of cohesive and more Spanish-like, just consistent throughout. We added some landscaping stuff in the front. I think as we go through the minute items, they're not going to apply anymore because of the larger changes we made to the project. But I'm going to let Bobby's going to go through these things in more detail.
Yeah, hi. I think you guys had 13 or 14 comments last time we were here that were on that review list. So since you last saw us about 7 months or so ago, in addition to working with staff, we also, I think, made a big effort to address, or at least review all your guys' comments and address as many as we could. And I think the result is a lot more cohesive project with more of an identity now. So I'll walk you through those. I have them kind of listed out. I think the easiest thing would be to walk you guys through your comments and how we have addressed them. The first couple comments had to do with providing more landscaping as well as softening the street wall. So originally we had a core 10 wall at the front and it ran along the back of the sidewalk, the whole property. So we've done two things. We've taken away the core 10 and put in a Santa Barbara sandstone wall. And we've also pulled back the wall in a portion of the project near the drive aisle so that we're able to provide planting at the street level. And you can see both of those in this rendering here. We had a comment to look at making the awnings at the ground level waterproofed. You see we've taken that comment and addressed that upon every door. We had a door in the last presentation that wasn't weatherproofed on the third floor. That's getting the same condition there. So we have an S-tile roof covering over each of the doorways. The fourth comment you had was just a more harmonious design. So originally we had a core 10 wall. We had steel railings mixed in instead of parapet walls. So there were some different design elements, I think, that were detracting from this cohesive vision of what Spanish colonial would be out here. So we added massing, and aesthetically we added massing, and I would say by consolidating the window openings to smaller, less openings, more condensed in location, so you get more massing on the exterior of the building. We removed the black steel railings and opened it up for a more traditional parapet wall, and we added a thick stone cap on the top of that to match the Santa Barbara sandstone at the street. We used heavy timber to lighten up the facade in places while still being able to hold up against the mass of the Spanish colonial style. And we added the Spanish tile roof and brought those elements down to the street level as well, so you see that at the canopies over the doors, so you get a little bit of that at the pedestrian level as well as at the roof. There were some comments about the trellises we had. We had a trellis here on the second floor as well as on the fourth floor. They were a little bit different in style previously. There wasn't a good reason for that, so they now are cohesive and match. We also had a comment to remove the trellis on this second floor. We looked at that and thought that having the trellis there helped define the massing on the corner so it didn't feel like the building was continuing to just step up. So that was kind of an intentional thing that we left there to fill out the mass of that void. We enclosed the railings on everything that's front facing on the street, so you get that Spanish colonial parapet wall. And then we used open railings on the sides in select locations to help provide view corridors. And we can show that over here as well, so kind of getting peekaboo views down towards the water. And then I don't know if it's earlier, but there were considerations about the landscaping and the planting. So you'll see in the planting plan, there's a lot of consideration Chris put into this, into protecting the privacy of the neighbor and trying to balance that view with also privacy for the neighbor. We had a kind of more modern element on the north side of the building. I'll go to the elevations here. that we ended up, it was just a parapet wall that went up, and it was a flat roof, so we removed that, put in a gable roof there, so it was more, it matched the aesthetic of the rest of the roof. The mechanical equipment, we've consolidated. There'll be spots potentially in the parking area, but most of it is being consolidated in a roof well here on the second floor that's protected from view in the hallway. You can show that in the floor plan here. So it's hidden by the roof from the street in the parking area, and you access it from the hall. And then it's, it should be hidden from view. And then we also added some detailing to the project that just wasn't here before that I think helps soften it. Increase the massing. Yeah, we added some mullions as requested on the upper floor windows. We added we added detailing at the arched openings. Originally, we kind of had a play of multiple styles. We had flat openings, arched openings. So we consolidated the detailing we were using at all openings, and we created a little pedestrian portal where you walk back into the residential area to create another kind of layer of privacy. We had a comment about the transformers. We don't have that utility information yet, but we do have kind of a placeholder location for it here. It would go, we would have to work it into the landscape here in this front patio. So if anything, it would probably be hidden by a wall, or I'm sorry, maybe the wall would probably be in the way of its clearance, but with low planting to hide as much as possible. But that's kind of the placeholder area within our plans. We just haven't progressed the utility plans to that point. The bike parking and the car parking is very similar in theory to what you saw last time. We just went through refinements. So the bike room is still in the back of the property. We have a couple short-term bike locations, one in the front of the property, one off the car area here. And then we still have 6 parking spaces in the rear. I'll probably hand it over to Chris to be able to just talk about the landscaping sheets and some of the changes and privacy considerations.
Thank you, Bobby. Well, we were, a lot to keep up with for this project. So I actually want to take another look at the planting at some point. But at one point we had, all the drainage was going into these raised Corten planters. And so I had a lot of juncus and things like that were to be used for the planting in those. Now that that's gone away, I still want to take another stab at that front and where we don't have drainage anymore and get something a little more interesting happening there. But the gist is that, we got more planting area, and that's helpful for that whole, for softening the front. And then, along, where we have openings within the parking area, we have sort of a green, what we call a green fence, and we'll be growing vines up on those to help soften the facade and privatize, as Bobby had mentioned. But so a lot of vine opportunities on this project, and soften everywhere we can with planting, but really pretty simple. It's not a huge amount of landscape. and of course some potted plants in certain areas, and get some vines up on those upper story trellises as well. But yeah, there's a little plant list on the left if you want to zoom in on that a little bit so David can see that a little better. And then you've gone through that. Okay. So otherwise, I'm happy to answer any questions.
One item that we didn't address at the beginning was we went through a few rounds of stormwater considerations. So what Chris mentioned, originally we weren't allowed to infiltrate our stormwater design.
Right.
So we were trying to capture it all in potted plants and containers on the property. So that was driving the design at the beginning in a lot of ways. And then going back and forth with the city, we refined, or we changed our plan, I guess, based on city direction to infiltrate the water. So we have less of these kind of big, is part of the reason that was driving the core 10 planters to start with. And so now that we don't have it as a constraint, you can start to see we can really reduce the walls and that massing at the street level and provide more low-level planting. And I think that's everything we have for you for our presentation today. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, we will open up public comment for item 1.
Thank you, Chair Anderson. I don't have any public speaker slips for in-person public comment. We don't have any participants online, and we did not receive any written correspondence for this item. So I will give it back to you.
Okay, we will close public comment for item 1 and move to questions from the board. Board Member 6?
Thank you, Chair Anderson. Are you still anticipating a significant recess in the large windows on the Anacapa elevation? You thickening those walls, or I think we discussed that
Yeah, I believe we
before.
have them, they're either 10-inch walls or 12-inch walls that we have
Excellent.
there, and they're thickened in the plan to accommodate for a wider door system, and anticipating more recess at the front of the property for those windows.
Great. What are there's various horizontal wood screens at the second and third floor, especially the third floor trellises. Can you tell what the function of that one that one is obvious, I think, because it,
This second floor one is just to protect kind of this other neighboring parking lot view from this residential deck,
Okay.
especially since you come out from the door straight looking down onto that.
uh-huh.
And then, is this the screen you were talking about
Yeah.
here? We're looking at ways to continue to privatize this apartment here from the rest of the, what would be public space for everybody else in the building to use as open space.
Oh, so
This-
under the trellis, no.
Yeah, the trellis is a part of public
Okay.
open space for the entire project, and then this is a private deck for this unit here. So it was just a continued way to develop a little bit more privacy, so it wasn't people right there talking over the wall.
Okay. And then, like on this rendering, it seems that the rake board is significantly thick and boxy. Have you designed that yet, or is this just a rendering thing? And what does that?
As
Do you intend that rake to look like?
Yeah, as you put it, I think it's a rendering thing. The rake should be a little thinner in profile, and then that roof thickness and flashing would come down a little bit more.
More typical of,
Yeah, more typical. Mhm.
traditional.
We're not trying to make any sort of statement there.
Okay, those are my questions.
Board Member Black?
Just brief. Chris, I noticed on your plant list that you're showing arbutus trees, 24-inch box, but I don't see them on the plan. And of course, I don't even know where you're going to put them, but,
Right.
so are they there or not? Or somewhere
Fourth
else?
floor, pots in the corner.
Oh, they're on the fourth floor, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bottom right of this page.
In pots.
In pots.
Okay. Thank you. And then, so we talked about, or you mentioned about a potential location for a transformer, like, well, I was going to ask you too about backflow, because I know you've got an irrigation plant here, but,
Yep.
so where are you anticipating a backflow to be? And then I just want to be clear about where a transformer might be and what dimension of a transformer would you anticipate?
We haven't gone it through any
Yeah, I realize.
any of that.
Do you have room?
So I just wanted to point out that I do think, going through another project now, I do think we have room in the front here. I just wanted to point out that this deck would be this patio for this short-term rental would be what would be affected the most, kind of anything on the plan, if there's considerations that need to be taken there. It was a question that was brought up earlier. We don't have an answer. I
Right.
kind of just wanted to point out the area of the plan that may be affected. It would most likely be screened with planting, since we couldn't put a wall or anything around it for clearances.
Oh, I see. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Board Member Noon?
Just, can you go to maybe that front rendering?
think it's probably obvious, but I wanted to make sure the recess that Board Member 6 was talking about, your intention is to have all those returned with plaster. I think it's just a rendering that they're black now.
I see. This, is it kind of how it looks like a shadow there? It's confusing whether it's like black steel, that, yeah, we intend to have it returned with plaster. We're not making a contemporary statement, I would say, on the front anymore, besides the size of the glass.
Okay.
Those are the ones rendered with plaster.
Yeah. And then your caps, do you intend to do all of your caps with stone? Is that what you're showing here?
Yeah, we're shown in the renders, yes.
Okay. Those are all my questions for now.
Board Member Soffern?
No questions.
Board Member Anderson?
So it looks like you've introduced this language of curves and arches a little bit. Can you talk about whether there was any precedents you looked at for that? In this image, we can see it pretty well.
I assume you're talking about the curves here as well as the curves at the openings?
Yeah, and I'm also noticing in this image, it looks like you've got a scalloping to the parapet cap where the plaster curves up and meets the parapet cap.
We were working on, we were trying to make some detailing. We're right next to a parking lot right here. So we're trying to create some detailing that goes from a human scale and matches up with the mass of the project, I guess. So we thought the scalping, after doing iterations with different designs, was the best approach for that. We used an arch opening because it creates what feels like the most space in a really small area. So we tried a square opening, and it reduces the massing on that element. And then if we tried doing an element like you see here at the garage, it made it feel much smaller.
Yeah,
So-
they just get too close together if they're in that narrow of an opening. And
So we pictured the arched as kind of being a more charming human entrance that we could potentially even, that creates a bit of privacy there, so that you don't feel like, if you're if you're actual resident in this building, feels like you have some separation from the street.
And just from a site planning perspective, like, we talked a lot about that, and there was questions about the circulation at the last hearing. I think you had questions about the circulation. And so we're in a situation where, like, we don't want people having to go up the driveway to get to that interior core. So we have it completely separated, but we wanted something obvious on the front that sort of signaled entry is here, and that was at a more human scale. So we pulled that up and actually created that wing wall to sort of signal that it's an entry.
Okay. And then, but in terms of the actual authorship of these curves, Brian, is there architect you drew from, like, you drew these curves from somewhere, right? Not the Roman arch, but the...
Yeah, those are just typical details that we see everywhere in downtown Santa Barbara on these types of buildings, and we didn't take it from one particular architect.
All right.
I agree, yeah.
Same with the bracket details on the awnings and all that. So that's just a very typical, anywhere in the Pueblo Viejo, you'd see those details.
Okay. And it looks like you've got a concrete curb that's supporting or under your Santa Barbara sandstone clad site wall. Is there a reason why you did that as opposed to bringing it down to the adjacent concrete sidewalk?
No, that's a detailing item that I think it would be fair to have further consideration looking at that.
Okay. That's pretty much it for me for now.
Okay. My only follow-up question would be regarding lighting. Would you consider articulating the permanent or long-term residential lighting different than the ground floor?
Yeah, definitely. I think we would. with this presentation, really trying to hone in on a more cohesive design. So I think that's where a lot of this lighting's coming from. But if you think that it would be nice to differentiate the two, I would definitely be willing to take that into consideration. And it would be a nice little touch, I think, to make the residences too feel a little more in place at their homes than a short-term rental.
Okay, any other questions, follow-up questions? Okay, let's go to comments. They're here for project design approval. So board member 6.
Yes, I really think this has come a long way, and I appreciate the responses. I think it's really ending up a successful project. I do have just a few little things, knowing me, can't get out of the woodwork, the weeds, but I think that just a little bit more traditional connectors on the trellises, the angle braces, can't at least express one primary beam and a secondary beam with overhangs and so forth, as you see, more traditional. And I don't quite understand why we need such a screen at the 3rd floor. It's minor, I wouldn't go there, but it seems that doesn't seem to be an issue. Maybe the wall is just a little bit higher, and the solid wall is just a bit higher and out
The
further.
second floor or the 4th floor?
3rd floor, yeah. And in deference to the neighbors, I would suggest just a slightly less transparent railing design, maybe at least on those portions that look directly down on the neighbor to the ocean side. And my own opinion is, I think it would be, I like the little private entry arch, but I think the corbels either need to be radically reduced in size or just not there at all. I think it would be a lot cleaner. And it still reads as a very a nice, cohesive project. So I commend you, and I think this is ready for project design approval.
Thank you.
Board member Black.
Yeah, I'd agree with those comments, and I would agree that it's suitable for PDA.
Board member Noon.
Yes, I also agree that it's ready for PDA. I hesitate to get into the, again, you're the designer. These are just thoughts. So I'm going to throw them out there. I agree, the arch on the side, that could be simplified quite a bit. Really, all of those corbels at the openings could be reduced in size and simplified. Personally, I think would be a nice touch. I should have asked the slope of the awnings. Is that typical? It seems like maybe those they're a little too flat. Maybe they should have a little more slope to it, unless there's a precedence out there that you have done or seen.
I agree.
I have the same question, actually. Is that a rendering issue? The ones on the front look like they sort of match the pitch of the roof, and the ones on the side look like they're much flatter. Is that just
I think
how
it's
it
just a rendering
rendered?
thing.
Yeah.
They're the same, but it would be worth looking at.
Yeah.
Especially if aesthetically looking from the street, you see more of the roof.
Yep.
We double the pitch or
Yep.
something there. Agreed.
And then, again, this is probably maybe a personal thing I should just keep quiet about, but it seems like just a simple plaster cap would be nice at the top of the parapet. The stone's nice at the ground where it belongs, but that's just an opinion. I don't know how the other board would feel about that. Certainly nothing that would I'd want to hold on to too strongly, but just a thought. And what?
Save a lot of money.
Yeah. And then, let's see, I think you got my comment on the returns. Yeah. That's it. It's a nice project. Well done.
Board Member Sofferman?
Yeah, it's like really, you guys have made a lot of great changes. I agree with all the previous comments and for the most part, and yeah, that pitch with the awnings, that was something that kind of stood out. But I don't know, maybe like instead of the stone, I think like a tile cap or something might be nice. But otherwise, I think it's a great project. I'm ready for PDA.
Board Member Anderson?
I would second Steve Noon's comment on the stone cap, though I do like the subtlety of the detail where it scallops, and I actually think that's the beginning of a stronger moment in the whole project for this kind of relief in the shadow, where the shadow kind of calls attention to the flatness of the plaster facade. I would set the doors back. I would recess the doors as well as the windows, and I don't think that the awnings really, I think it's making it look busy, and I would just have that. I would rather see the tile roof on the top, on the actual sloped roofs, and just use the recess for water protection. And then in terms of the composition of the elevation from the street, I think it could benefit still from a little bit more compact feeling, and those big windows on the front do feel proportionally a little kind of out of scale relative to the other windows. But other than that, I think it's okay. I think it still feels a little boxy to me, and the proportioning, it does feel like, you had talked about a more human scale level of detail. So I think this project kind of needs to simultaneously be still simplified a little bit more and edited down a little bit more, but also provide a little more detail at that kind of smaller scale, like that little scalloping detail, without making it kind of busy or resorting to maybe like, the ornamentation of a stone cap. That doesn't necessarily for me make an improvement to that. So yeah, that's my comments. Thanks.
Thank you.
I would agree that it's ready for PDA. Does anyone have any other comments? Who would like to make a motion?
I have a question.
Oh, sure.
We heard eliminate corbels and reduce
Well,
corbels.
we're gonna make a motion. And
Okay.
So it'll be
clear in the motion.
clarified
Gotcha.
depending on who makes the motion. As in Board Member 6 wants to.
I would make a motion for indefinite continuance with the project design approval, with the first of all complementing the overall architecture and design of the project. It's very successful. Number two, there are several minor suggestions, not hard, but suggestions that could be considered. Number one, to provide more traditional connections at the trellis posts and beams, to consider, for the sake of neighbors, a slightly less transparent railing on the ocean side elevation, to either reduce by 2/3 or eliminate the corbels in the decorative openings. that the suggestion that the cap on the upper balcony floors be eliminate the stone but maintain a very small, delicate scallop. He's just a little guy. Is all that's needed, I think. And that looking forward to the detailing of the rakes and eaves, so they are more proportional to a traditional venue, and to look at and study the slope of the what would you call those? The awning, the tile awnings above the door entries. And we look forward to a successful solution to the transformer.
And
I think, oh, and
so we just want to make sure we hit all the project compatibility, but then we have the development plan findings, which we can pull up on screen, and that's for the new non-residential floor area, the small amount.
okay. So I'm going to interject something that was made aware to me, that we find this compatible and is consistent with the design guidelines of the applicable location of the project. And the location of the project, the area which it is compatible, is the block of Anacapa from block long, and from one side and the other side of the street. So I'm defining that. So when somebody comes and says, well, I've got a very compatible project over here, and that can lead to an appeal. So we define the parameters of what we're compatible with. I think that we're in a much better place. So number 2 is compatible with the architecture of the city and the neighborhood. It is of appropriate size, mass, bulk, height, and scale. There are no city landmarks or historic resources affected. There are no public views of the ocean and mountains affected. And there is adequate space, open space, and landscaping for this type of project. And do we have to read all this?
So if I may, to Board Member 6, so these are the development plan findings. Again, that this is a really small request for the new non-residential floor area, but you're required to make these. This is one of those items that we put to the HLC and ABR to try to streamline projects that are only adding a small amount of floor area. But oftentimes you don't even see this because a development plan is only triggered when you add 1,000 square feet of new non-residential floor area. So a lot of the projects that you see come in at 998 square feet or something, that they just kind of get around the additional findings. But
So I'm to
it
read-
meets all of the zoning standards. If
So I'm
that's
to
helpful.
read this verbatim.
Yes, please.
The development, we can find that the project meets the development plan 30.230.060 findings. Number A, the letter A, the proposed development complies with all applicable provisions of this title. B, the proposed development is consistent with the principles of sound community planning. C, the proposed development will not have a significant adverse impact upon the community's aesthetics or character, in that the size, bulk, or scale of the development will be compatible with the neighborhood based on the project compatibility analysis criteria found in sections 22.22.1 145 or 22.68.005 of the Santa Barbara Municipal Code, and D, the proposed development is consistent with the policies of the City of Santa Barbara Traffic Management Strategy.
And that you can stop there. I don't, if
Do we-
that
we don't-
satisfies it. I
that's-
don't mean, if you want to.
No, I don't want to, do that, because we have no,
I think that's funny.
yeah.
That's plenty. That captures it.
So the motion will delete any wording on item D.
I'll second.
I think you should just say you don't.
Yeah, if you agree with that, you could say that it also satisfies item D, and we'll capture that. So you don't have to read all the additional. I'm just trying to save you a little time, but I think I've just made it worse. Sorry.
I'll second that, and then maybe we can stop
Yeah,
it
I'm
there.
not-
How's that?
Yeah, here we are quoting something about traffic, and we have been constantly badgered about
Yeah.
not reviewing and not being able to comment about traffic, so I don't get it.
Yeah.
And so I think that I'm going to read these findings for A, B, and C, but not D.
That you need to make all of the development plan findings in order to, all of them need to be made. And if you feel like you can't make them, then you can add conditions. But I can tell you that the proposed development, according to our transportation staff that has reviewed all of these plans, they concur that it's consistent with the policies of the City of Santa Barbara Traffic Management Strategy. If I could make one more staff comment to the board, that generally we don't like to put land use items in front of you, but this was creating a development plan that's done at the design review board. It doesn't happen very often, but this is all part of our growth management plan. That this is a way to streamline things for applicants rather than making them go to the staff hearing officer or the planning commission. So this is really just for tiny small projects. That's the
Okay.
purpose of it. So I'm sorry to confuse you.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's confusing. Well, I guess it is confusing in the way of exactly what Board Member 6 said, as we get scolded not to make comments on any of these land use.
Well, we've been asked that
Yeah.
the development is consistent with the traffic, and so can we put any other language other than that on to say that we understand by staffs and the traffic department's study that the proposed development is consistent? ...
Yes.
Okay, we'll do that.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Okay, let's take a vote.
Thank you, Chair Anderson. I'll begin with Board Member 6.
I think it's more courteous to go to the chair first.
Yes.
We can do it that way. Then Chair Anderson.
Yes.
Board Member Noon.
Yes.
Board Member Anderson.
Yes.
Board Member Black.
Yes.
Board Member Sovereign.
Yes.
Board Member 6.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I believe there's a 10-day appeal period for this project, and the appeal process is on the screen. And with that, we will adjourn our meeting for today.
Thanks.